Welcome, everybody. As you're signing on, we're going to get started in just a minute. Just giving people a chance to log in. All right, it looks like we have a good quorum, so we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. This is Lars Light from the Somme Journal, welcoming you to a tour of Spain. I am joined today by Pedro Garcia, who is the managing director for Felix Solis Avantis. We're going to hear more about them, and Juan Antonio Mejia Fernandez, who is director of winemaking for Pagos del Rey. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about Ribera del Duero and Rueda, and I, for one, am always loving learning more and more about any wine region that I can. We're going to make some of you a little bit jealous because we've got some wines to taste together, and I'll do my best to communicate to you what I'm tasting. But Juan, bienvenidos. Pedro, welcome.
Thank you.
Pedro, you're coming to us from Miami, and Juan Antonio is coming from Duero, so this is pretty exciting. Pedro, I'm going to ask you to kick it off and tell us a little bit about Felix Solis Avanti and what you guys are all about, and lead it into the tasting with Juan Antonio.
Thank you so much, Lars. Thank you, all of the attendees for the webinar. Thank you for carving some time out of your day to join us here for a quick run of Rueda and Ribera del Duero. We wanted to really shine a light to these two exciting regions and share the Felix Solis stories with everyone here today. So I'm going to jump right in. So who is Felix Solis Avantis? Felix Solis Avantis is a 100% family-owned winemaking organization established in Valdepeñas, a sub-region of La Mancha, back in 1952. Fast forward to today, we are still 100% family-owned, and the family, it's in its fourth generation, with the fourth generation being the children of our CEO's son, which are currently in the university. The group is divided into 4 branches, with Felix Solis Avantis at the top, being the administration, sales, and marketing services and logistical services to all of our wineries, shown at the bottom, which Felix Solis to the left is in charge of all wine producing services in Valdepeñas and La Mancha, with Pagos del Rey being our dedication and our efforts to really go to the Northern DOs, which was established in 2002 with our first winery being in Ribera del Duero. Pagos del Rey is a specialist in Northern DOs with wine facilities in Ribera del Duero, Rioja, Rueda, Toro, and Rías Baixas. And most recently, our passion for winemaking has taken us to Chile, where we are currently wrapping up our 30 million liter capacity winery outside of Curicó. This is a highlight of where our wineries are located across Spain. The birthplace of the Felix Solis winemaking traditions is that brown circle to the bottom left of La Mancha, which is Valdepeñas, and followed by La Mancha, which is the world's largest grape growing region in the world. Lots of organic wines in that region as well. And then obviously from right to left, we have Rioja, we have Ribera del Duero, we have Rueda, and then we have Toro on the left. What makes us interesting? We are a top 10 global wine player. Like I said, we are 100% family owned. What's unique about our go-to-market strategy here in the US is that we, Felix Solis, established our own import and distribution company in the US market, so we can truly be the best winery direct partnerships for the US market. Thus, our intentions are to grow the Spanish category by way of this winery direct supply chain so that we can offer the best quality and the best prices within the US market, both on the off and on premise. We have stateside inventory in New Jersey and in California, which we feed to our 30+ nationwide distributor partners across the US. I also wanted to talk a little bit about our ecological investments, and we'll be quickly here because I know everybody wants to really get down to the dirt and nitty gritty of Rueda and Ribera, but this is important because this is a continued sign of our desire to be leaders in our sector and to do the best we can for the environment in the process. So our sustainability plan, renewable energies, implementation of new technologies and improvements, our commitment to 100% FSC cardboard certification and brick containers, our plan to reduce the use of plastic at the winery, our energy optimization by reducing internal movements with the new warehouses that we're going to show you here, and carrying out our calculation and registration to reduce our carbon footprint as well. And then a major project for us to be our 250 hectares of solar panels to be self-sufficient. On the bottom, you'll see our new state-of-the-art barrel room, which is probably the largest in the wine sector. This is a snapshot of our brand new barrel room where we house over 130,000 barrels in Valdepeñas. This is over 18 stories high. This is completely temperature controlled, humidity controlled, and automatically controlled by these robotic arms that you see here. Each barrel is scanned with a UPC code and sent to a certain spot in the warehouse for ideal aging conditions. And the system also rotates and moves these barrels according to heat or the height of the warehouse, so we can shuffle them around to keep them away from the hotter area of the warehouse, which is the top, obviously. So remarkable, incredibly advanced oak warehouse that we're very, very proud of. This is a snapshot of the Spanish wine sales domestically. I wanted to share this because it's interesting to see these trends here, both in volume and in value, looking at Spain by style, from Joven to Crianza to Reserva. And it's interesting to see that there's a tremendous growth in Spain for a demand in young wines. And I think this is something that's possibly not just happening in Spain, but here domestically as well. People want more fruit forward, more bright, easy drinking everyday wines. And the data is showing that the consumer is really demanding for more of these styles of wine. So at the top, Joven's growing by 20% in volume. Crianzas are growing by 16%. Reservas are growing by 8%. And then we see a decline in Gran Reserva, which is, what I call going from my great-grandfather and my grandfather's styles of wine more to what I like to drink these days, which are more acid-driven, more fruit-driven, everyday styles of wine that don't require food with them. Again, the category share in Spain is mainly red. We know that here in the US is mainly white. That's why we're excited to talk about Rueda. Then at the bottom here, we have the same slide, but in value. And again, Joven is growing at 24%. Crianza is growing at 16.7, Reservas at 7. And then again, a decline in Gran Reserva. So this, I wanted to share this because I thought it was very interesting to see the trends for consumer flavor preferences in domestic Spain as we try to grow the Spanish category here in the US, and kind of being the bridge between Spain, Spanish consumers, the Spanish market, and the US market and the US consumers. This is a snapshot of our position across all of the DOs where we make wine and grow grapes. We're category leaders in Valdepeñas. We're category leaders in Rueda since 2009. We're category leaders in Ribera del Duero, in La Mancha, the world's largest grape growing region. We have 18% market share. Rioja is still Spain's most competitive DO. We're in the top 7 with about a 5% share there. And then Toro with 46% market share as well. So from vine to bottle, we have complete control, complete consistency of the supply chain. Now we're getting to Rueda and our leading brand, Blume, fresco por naturaleza, naturally fresh. And this is, to be quite honest with you, one of the most exciting wine regions in Spain for me, because I love drinking whites, and the Verdejo and the Sauvignon Blanc coming out here are just remarkable. So let's, without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our director of winemaking for Pagos del Rey, Juan Antonio Mejia, which is going to walk us through the region, the varietal, the terroir, the climate, and just give us all some nuggets of information to really fall in love and fully understand why Rueda is so exciting for Spain, and more so why I think Rueda is such an exciting wine producing region for us to take advantage to educate and turn on more US consumers to these exciting white wines. Juan Antonio, Por favor, it's all yours.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes desde aquí, desde España y más concretamente desde Rueda, el centro neurálgico de la variedad Verdejo.
Good afternoon from Spain. Good afternoon, mainly from Rueda, from the epicenter of Verdejo.
Os voy a contar un poquito dónde estamos. Estamos situados en Rueda, digamos en la mejor zona de producción de la variedad Verdejo. Dentro de la denominación de origen Rueda hay una zona privilegiada que está entre los pueblos de Rueda, La Seca y Serrada, que son las zonas donde tienen mejores terrenos.
We're coming to you from the most privileged grape growing region within Rueda. Juan Antonio, ¿cómo se llama el área otra vez una vez más, por favor?
El área que enclava la mejor zona de la denominación de origen Rueda es Rueda, Serrada y La Seca.
Rueda, Serrada en La Seca, ¿vale?
Correcto. Nosotros estamos en Rueda. Es una zona, las características de la zona, la primera es la altitud. Tenemos una altitud que nos movemos entre 700 y 900 metros sobre el nivel del mar.
One of the most important characteristics of this region where we are in Rueda proper is high altitude, anywhere between 700 meters and 900 meters of altitude.
Otra es las características del terreno. Son tierras oscuras, tierras ricas en calcio y magnesio, terrenos normalmente muy pedregosos o cascajosos, como se aprecia en alguna de las fotos.
The second is the terroir, a dark soil, gravelly, lots of stones.
Es un terreno que almacena muy bien la poca humedad que tenemos por las pocas lluvias que hay en estas zonas. Las raíces son muy profundas.
It's an area and a terroir that has good water absorption, and it is much needed because of the little rainfall in this region. So in other words, it really stresses out the vines, and we all know that the more the vines are stressed, the higher quality of the fruit. So Juan Antonio is saying that the vines really work deep. They have lots of deep root systems in this region.
Y otra de las principales características es la climatología. Aunque estamos en un enclave mediterráneo, estamos muy influenciados por un clima continental, siendo los inviernos muy fríos y largos y los veranos muy calurosos.
And then the third point is going to be the climate. We're in a continental climate here, extremely cold winters, very hot summers, huge temperature swings between day and night, and again, continuous stress for these vines.
Con la particularidad que también veremos en Ribera de Duero de las diferencias de temperatura que hay entre el día y la noche, sobre todo en verano, lo que influye directamente en la maduración de forma muy positiva, ayudando a conservar los vinos esa acidez que veremos ahora después en cata.
These huge temperature swings, mainly in the summer, really help secure the acidity levels in the white varietals of Rueda.
Vale, os comento un poquito, si queréis, cómo se elaboran los vinos en Rueda.
Total. He's going to talk a little bit about how he makes the Verdejos and Sauvignon Blancs in Rueda. And I got some pictures of our vineyards in Rueda for you to look at as well. ¿Vale?
En Rueda se practica una viticultura realmente moderna. La mayoría de los viñedos están puestos como podéis apreciar en la fotografía, en espaldera. Y a la hora de la vendimia, prácticamente el 90% se vendimia de manera mecánica y nocturna. Tanto es así que el Consejo Regulador obliga a recoger la uva por la noche.
The Rueda region is a highly technologically and advanced wine production DO. They're highly committed to the highest quality fruit in the region, so much so that the Dominación de Origen, the Regulatory Council of Rueda, mandates that the vineyards are harvested at night to secure the best temperature for transportation of the grapes back to the wineries. So hand-picked, some are hand-picked and some, Antonio, aquí nosotros usamos, recogemos la uva de mano y de máquina también, echamos un porcentaje de los dos.
Principalmente el 95-96% es cogida de forma mecanizada.
So currently today, about 95% of all the grapes are harvested, machine harvested in Rueda, with about 5% being hand harvested. ¿Vale?
Cuando los técnicos de campo y yo mismo, que me sumo con ellos, determinamos el momento óptimo de maduración, comenzamos la vendimia y bueno, empieza a entrar la uva en bodega por las noches. El sistema que utilizamos de vinificación es el siguiente. Maceramos la uva con sus pieles y con las pepitas durante 6, 8 o 10 horas, depende de las características de cada uva. Y a partir de...
Whole cluster maceration. Antonio, eso es, ¿qué más? Maceración de la fruta y la pepa, ¿correcto?
Claro, a maceración llamamos que la uva la molturamos y toda esa pasta de uvas, la piel, las pepitas y el mosto van a un depósito. El objetivo es extraer los aromas que están en la piel. La mayoría de los aromas se concentran en la piel. Entonces, un tiempo en contacto del mosto con esas pieles es lo que hace extraer esos aromas.
Yeah, it's very important for the white wines of Rueda to have skin contact. All of the aromatics from the varietal Verdejo and Sauvignon Blanc come from the skins. So they really want to make sure that the juice, the must, has a decent amount of time with some skin contact to ensure the highest aroma characteristics for the wines.
Pedro, can you ask Juan Antonio if that's a cold soak? What temperature are they doing that maceration, that initial
I
maceration?
believe it is. Juan Antonio, esa maceración de las uvas, de la fruta con la piel, eso es en frío, ¿correcto?
Eso es en frío.
Yeah, cold. Yeah, of course.
Además de la temperatura de la uva que la cogemos de noche y nos puede llegar en torno a entre 17 y 19 grados aproximadamente, además enfriamos la uva en bodega para que sea en frío.
Yeah, so in addition to getting the fruit already cool, because it's a night harvest, they go ahead and cool it additionally at the winery during the process.
Y con todo tenemos que estar muy atentos a que esos tiempos de maceración no sean excesivos para no extraer más compuestos indeseables que también están en la piel. Polifenoles, color, también si lo tenemos mucho tiempo extraeríamos mucho color. Entonces tenemos que jugar, estamos en el alambre.
It's a slippery slope that requires a lot of attention, because obviously we get a lot of positives from skin contact, but we have to make sure that we keep a close eye, because now we're going to get additional characteristics that are not going to be desirable for the varietal or the wine, like additional polyphenols or color in the wine as well. So that's a great point for him to make. Gracias, Juan Antonio. Buen punto. ¿Vale?
And Pedro, I'm sorry to interrupt one more time. Just something I'd like to really hone in on is, so it's night harvest, but exactly what time of day? How much time have the grapes had to cool off?
That's a good point. Juan Antonio, entendemos que es una cosecha nocturna, pero exactamente a qué hora de la noche normalmente se hacen estas cosechas, para por lo menos uno coger una idea del clima o de qué tipo de frío hay en el viñedo a esa hora.
Normalmente pues empezamos la vendimia alrededor de las 2, 3 de la mañana,
Whoa.
que es cuando la uva se empieza a encontrar fresca.
Okay, so we're talking about average. Normally, we start to harvest between 2 and 3 in the morning.
So that's right after dinner in Spain.
Dice Lars que eso es, a la vez que termine de cenar, va directamente a cosechar.
Sí, cenar y alguna copa y luego a cosechar.
Oh my God, he's not kidding. Dinners are way too late in Spain, Lars. You know that. So that's interesting, because he says that between 2 and 3 in the morning is truly when the grapes have had a chance to cool down. So he thinks it's the prime time for the harvest. ¿Vale? ¿Qué más, Juan Antonio? ¿Algún otro punto?
Bueno, terminamos un poquito. A partir de ahí, cuando lo hemos macerado esas 6, 8 horas, hacemos un sangrado por gravedad Los depósitos llevan como una especie de colador, una rejilla, abrimos una válvula, sale el mosto limpio para solamente por gravedad, sin ningún tipo de presión, y eso es lo que, con ese mosto es con el que empezamos la fermentación y lo que va dirigido principalmente a nuestras marcas Blume.
So after about 6 to 8 hours of maceration with the skins to ensure, the best aromatics, then you do a gravity-fed bleed to get that juice, which is the highest quality wine that they use to start the fermentation process.
A partir de ahí, bueno, pues como en todos lados, una fermentación totalmente controlada, tanto en temperatura, densidades, acideces, bueno, y preocupándonos de que finalice bien.
Controlled fermentation, controlled temperatures to ensure the highest quality results.
Pedro, are we looking at head trained vines, looking at those pebbles in the soil?
Correct.
Nice. So the rocks really help.
¿Algún otro comentario del terreno, de la foto? As we can see here, I think it's remarkable to see that it's so gravelly, lots of stones. Kind of reminds me of Toro, but nowhere near. There's no sand here. It's not sandy. Here there's more clay, limestone, which is great for the water retention that Juan Antonio mentioned earlier. I think it's cool to see those stones or so much gravel, because I always remember someone telling me that those stones bake during the day and they help keep the roots nice and warm at night. So it's remarkable how Mother Nature has this synergy, in so much chaos, there's just so much perfection as well. I guess that's why we all fell in love with wine. Some more pictures of Rueda. And now we're going to start with, and like Lars said to all of our viewers, this is not meant to be a tease in any way, but we are going to taste these wines a little bit. And we are going to walk you through a little bit of their characteristics. Juan Antonio, vamos a empezar la cata.
Sí, perdona Pedro, es que se va un poquito la conexión. ¿Me oís a mí?
Sí, te oigo.
Vale, ahora. Ok. Si queréis, procedemos a catar los dos vinos que hemos preparado de nuestra bodega de Rueda.
Yep, we're going to start with the Sauvignon Blanc. Juan Antonio thinks it's best for us to start tasting the Sauvignon Blanc so that we can spend a little bit more time talking about the emblematic white grape of Rueda, which is the Verdejo.
So let me throw another question out there, and I can say this one in Spanish too. ¿Por qué Sauvignon Blanc? Why Sauvignon Blanc?
Why first, or why Sauvignon Blanc in the region?
Why Sauvignon Blanc? Why is it in that area? Why what is the reason behind it? What do you find so attractive about Sauvignon Blanc in the Rueda?
That's a great question, Lars. Thank you so much. Juan Antonio, ¿por qué Sauvignon Blanc? ¿Por qué tú crees que Sauvignon Blanc es una uva blanca principal de Rueda? ¿Hay alguna razón de que el Sauvignon Blanc se esté enfocando en el área de Rueda?
Bueno, decir que no es la principal es la Verdejo, pero sí es la segunda variedad más importante que se da en Rueda.
It's not the primary focus of the region, nor is it the star white varietal, but it is definitely number 2.
Como todos sabemos, no es originaria de esta zona, pero sí que la adaptación en el terreno que os he comentado antes es una adaptación muy buena.
It's not indigenous of Rueda, but it thrives in the region. Well, I'll tell you why I'm excited about Blume and Rueda Sauvignon Blanc. I think we can all agree that there's a tremendous uptick in interest of Sauvignon Blanc globally, and it's led by New Zealand, and obviously France and California is making some good Sauvignon Blanc as well. But for us being a Spanish producer, and with our primary goal of growing the Spanish category in the US, the US consumers understand varietals, they drink varietals, they don't really understand DOs or crianzas or and so forth. So it can be confusing to them. So I'm really excited about bringing a varietal that's thriving in the US market, a varietal that's sought after, and a varietal who I think can really show the beautiful expression of Spain and really connect with some Sauvignon Blanc drinkers in the US that are either enjoying French or New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. So that's why I really like Blume Sauvignon Blanc. I think it's a nice middle ground to New Zealand and Loire. It's got tons of minerality. It doesn't really got that grassiness or that gooseberry component, but I get a lot of tropical fruit. I get a lot of citrus, and on the palate, it's just incredible minerality and very bright, fresh acid, which is really, really enjoyable.
It's very savory. It's very savory. To me, it's much more similar to Loire, to European. It's got European qualities much more than the spikiness of some of the New Zealand versions or even the US versions of it. It's got a beautiful creaminess to it, very round, good acidity, but not it's not screeching.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree with you more. It's just lovely. It just tart, bright, acid, creamy, lingers, really cleanses your palate, gets you ready for another bite or another sip. Really, really delicious. Juan Antonio,
No,
¿quieres
sí.
tu punto sobre el Sauvignon Blanc?
Bueno, yo destacaría, bueno, a nivel de color, pues tiene su amarillo pajizo, dorado pajizo.
Color is, yellow pale, bright.
En aromas manifiesta un poco los aromas propios de la variedad, a pesar de que con el paso del tiempo es un vino del 2021, que tiene ya más de un año de vida y algo ha evolucionado. Pero se ven las flores, las frutas de hueso, melocotón.
Stone fruit, peach, tropical fruit. All the characteristics of Sauvignon Blanc. Obviously, this wine has a little bit of time in bottle already, so you get some of those incredible balanced flavors coming through versus a Sauvignon Blanc or Verdejo that's just been recently bottled, where the acidity can be a little bit more aggressive.
Y luego en boca
Is you mentioned quince, right?
Excuse me?
Melocotón is quince, right?
Melocotón is peach.
Peach. Okay, there is peachiness to it.
Yeah.
Peach, apricot.
Yeah, totally. Stone fruit.
y en boca destacaría su untuosidad o su cremosidad. Da incluso la sensación de siendo un vino totalmente seco, con ausencia de azúcar, tiene una cremosidad y una untuosidad muy bien integrada con la acidez que mantiene el vino.
He says the creaminess
completo, lleno de vida todavía, para obtener un año y ser un blanco joven.
The creaminess of this wine with the acidity is truly remarkable. It's full of life. It's extremely vibrant. And for a wine that goes through stainless steel with no oak influence, it's really drinking really well. It's got a lot of life. Extremely enjoyable. Vale? Back to Verdejo. Juan Antonio, y el Verdejo y el Sauvignon Blanc, así, ¿cuál es la diferencia principal entre las dos uvas? ¿Hay alguno que tiene un poco de piel más gruesa? ¿Cómo tú comparas el Sauvignon Blanc como uva con el Verdejo? ¿Hay alguna, tienes que tratarla diferente? So my question to him was, does he see a difference between the Sauvignon Blanc and the Verdejo grapes? Does he have to treat them differently for any reason?
La gestión del viñedo es algo distinta. El Verdejo es una variedad, el Sauvignon Blanc es una variedad menos productiva.
Sauvignon Blanc is a lower yielding varietal.
Menos kilos por hectárea. En un Sauvignon Blanc es difícil llegar a 6.000 kilos por hectárea y en un Verdejo es mucho más fácil llegar a 6.000 kilos por hectárea, 7, y 8 y 9. Entonces, luego, a la vez teniendo en cuenta la forma de cultivo, el Verdejo, por ejemplo, es más sensible a epidemias, lo que es oidio y mildio.
¿Se puede enfermar más el Verdejo?
Sí, correcto.
Oh, wow, the Verdejo is more prone to getting sick on the vineyards versus the Sauvignon Blanc. It's mainly mildew.
Podemos decir que el Verdejo es una variedad más silvestre.
¿Cuál?
El Verdejo.
The Verdejo is considered a wild varietal.
Más silvestre, y eso se traduce en que a la hora de gestionar la vegetación mantenerla de forma tipo seto, airear esa uva, pues es un poquito más complicada la gestión de la uva.
Yeah, so the pruning and the vineyard maintenance of Verdejo is a little bit more work because it is a wild varietal wild vine, but much higher yielding in Rueda compared to the Sauvignon Blanc. ¿Vale? Vamos a probar.
Pasamos al verdejo.
So how common is it that Verdejo is going to get iridium if you've got a pretty dry climate, from what I understand, no?
Yeah. What was the first part of your question, Lars? You broke up.
So if he's saying Verdejo is more sensitive to iridium and other molds, but how frequently does that happen if you've got a pretty dry, almost desert-like climate?
Good point. Juan Antonio, dice Lars que tú comentaste que el verdejo se puede enfermar por las razones que mencionaste del mildew, pero la región Rueda es muy seco. Entonces, ¿cuándo son los momentos que se puede enfermar la fruta? ¿Cuáles son los momentos peligrosos? ¿Cuándo pasa? ¿Y cuántas veces pasa?
Es muy seco, pero la variedad verdejo es muy sensible al oidio. El oidio coloquialmente se llama ceniza, porque es un hongo que parece grisáceo, que parece la ceniza. Es muy sensible y con cualquier foco, aunque sea pequeño, que tengas en verano, que los hay, aunque haga calor, la planta está muy tupida, dentro se forma un microclima que se puede generar y luego en las épocas que nos vamos aproximando a vendimia, aunque la zona es muy seca, sí es probable que haya noches donde haya niebla y con esa niebla se forme el entorno propicio para que el hongo prospere.
Yeah, so although it's very hot, because of the fact that the vines are pretty wild on the trellises, they need some, they have leaves because they need some shade to protect them from the sun. It kind of creates a little bit of a microclimate in there, and this fungus is almost ashy, and it's the Verdejo varietal is very prone to catching that as well. And then also some nights in September, October, we get a lot of fog. Okay, so the fog comes in, cools them off, and that's another dangerous time where we can have the fungus and the mildew coming through on the fruit as well. Vale, vamos a catar.
Bueno, a la vista la variedad verdejo tiene algún matiz menos amarillo y con un tono más verdoso que el Sauvignon Blanc. A medida que va pasando.
On color, the Verdejo is going to be a little bit more greenish pale versus the yellow of the Sauvignon Blanc.
A medida que va pasando el tiempo, el color va evolucionando. Si probásemos un verdejo ahora del 2022, lo veríamos más claramente todavía.
He says that obviously with time in the bottle, the color starts to turn a little darker, a little bit more golden, compared with the 2022 Verdejos that are going to be bottled at the end of the year, which are going to be much brighter, much wider.
Bueno, en nariz vemos unos aromas herbáceos a hierbas de monte bajo, toques afrutados, algo de anisados tiene también el verdejo.
Herbaceous component on the nose, a little bit of anise as well, juicy citrus components, tangerine, grapefruit.
Y luego en boca, a mi punto de vista, es un vino con algo más de volumen, más estructurado en boca, con más cuerpo y quizá por eso también con más guarda, con más tiempo de guarda. Algunos matices amargos, que también son propios de la variedad verdejo, pero esa amargura mezclado con la acidez importante que tienen, pues es un vino que te hace salivar, digamos, y te invita a echar otro trago o a dar otro trago.
Very savory white varietal, very savory white wine. On the palate, very creamy, creamier than the Sauvignon Blanc in his opinion.
I agree with that, and I think it's very similar in terms of structure and acidity to the Sauvignon Blanc, but definitely more creamy, definitely more unctuous.
Yeah, I get the more creaminess on the Verdejo as well, That's interesting because the Sauvignon Blanc had a nice mouthfeel, but what I did see a big difference between the two is I got more minerality out of the Sauvignon Blanc than I did the Verdejo.
Yeah, I would say more melon than stone fruit on the
Yeah.
Verdejo.
Yeah, totally. 100% great side-by-side contrast of two white varietals in the region. Just night and day, both beautiful.
No sé,
Juan,
me gustaría, Pedro, saber la opinión que tenéis vosotros en cuanto al color de los vinos blancos, si preferís vinos blancos mucho más pálidos o vinos blancos más con su color natural.
He asked a great question. That's a commercial question. He asked me that in my opinion, ¿qué es lo que me gusta a mí, dices tú? ¿Qué es lo que trabaja mejor en el mercado?
En general, o por dónde van las tendencias. Nosotros no nos gusta tocar los vinos en cuanto a color, porque si quitas color sacrificas otras virtudes que tiene el vino en aromas y en sabores, pero cada uno va un poco por libre. Antes, hace años, había una moda de los vinos muy pálidos. Yo creo que ahora los vinos, la gente admite que tengan más bien su color, aunque estén un poquito más subidos, siempre y cuando el color sea unos tonos verdosos, no sean marrones, sea un tono bonito.
Total. So his question was, what are the trends in the market, for as far as color of the white wines, and how accepting is the consumer or the buyers or the industry of darker colored white wines versus paler color white wines? And I think that's a great question. Commercially, I think that the US market, from a consumer standpoint, the majority of the bull share are not educated enough to understand that some wines are going to be, darker in color. Lars, you have your hand
That's
up?
why we have sommeliers.
Exactly. So that's why I said, the bull share of the consumers are not, educated enough to understand why that color might be, golden or strawish compared to, the paler greenish whites that they might be consuming every day. So I think it's a slippery slope because the consumer obviously makes the category. If we'd have to divide this into the on and off premise preferences.
Exactly.
For sure. I think there's definitely an uptick on the on-premise where these somms that are the gatekeepers to these great beverage wine programs are educated enough to find, yellow or golden or, barrel-aged whites that got some color and density to them, because they can educate the customer at the table side and tell them why that wine looks that way. But I think if you put a golden yellow Verdejo on the shelf at a major retailer, I think it'll sit there for some time.
At retail, you sell to the eye.
Yeah.
On premise, you sell to the palate.
100%.
What does it taste like? That's what.
100%. Juan Antonio,
Sí.
buenísima pregunta. Great question. Great question. So, para darte la respuesta a ti en español, yo creo que en el mercado americano tenemos que tener mucho cuidado con lo que son los vinos blancos con mucho color para lo que es alimentación, para la categoría de alimentación. Y creo que hay una oportunidad para los vinos con más color, con un poco más de expresión o de barrica o de varietal o de tiempo con contacto con la piel para el on-premise, lo que es hotelería, porque en la división de hotelería hay más educación. Tenemos a los sommeliers que pueden educar al consumidor en lo que están tomando y por qué ese vino está así. Pero de todos puntos, me pareció una pregunta espectacular. Muchas gracias.
Entonces estamos, yo creo, de forma parecida a este lado del Atlántico, más o menos es similar.
¿Ustedes están igual en España?
Sí, depende del cliente potencial, digamos. Puede admitir algo más de color o se rige más por la vista y hay que darle vinos más pálidos.
He says the trend in Spain is exactly like we just described here for the US. Perfecto. Okay, so without further ado, we're just going to try to keep running through this so we can respect everybody's time. That is going to wrap up our deep dive of Rueda. I'll do a quick backtrack to just show some more visuals of the vineyard sites. As you can see, there are some slopes in this region as well. gravelly, very wild. That's all the verdejo he was talking about. You can tell it's wild and leafy. So he's talking about the
Pedro,
micro.
perdona,
Dime.
Pedro, mira, esa foto que tienes ahora mismo en la izquierda, la vemos nosotros, es muy característica de uno de los mejores terrenos de Rueda. Ese cascajo, esa piedra que veis debajo es lo que le da frescura al suelo, mantiene la humedad, hace que las raíces sean muy profundas, etc.
He says that the picture to the left is a picture perfect example of high quality terroir in Rueda. Rocky, gravelly, keeps the soil cool, helps warm up the roots at night, forces the vines to go deep into the land. So perfect example of Rueda terroir to the left, and we'll keep on moving. And our Blume Verdejo, our Blume Sauvignon Blanc, both of these are about $12 retail. These are wholesale wines that you can find across the US and select markets for $8.25, between $8.25 and $8.75, depending on the market. So I think both of these whites really, over deliver price point to quality when you're looking at retail and wholesale prices.
Under 10 bucks on retail.
Under $10 wholesale.
Wholesale, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
under
it's gonna
$10
be
wholesale.
over 10. Still a great price.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Even with all the headwinds we've been facing, supply chains and logistics nightmares, we can still hit some really aggressive wholesale and retail prices. Juan Antonio, Condado de Oriza, what's going on in Ribera del Duero, and why are people saying that Ribera del Duero grows the king of Spain, which is the best tempranillo, Tinta Fino?
Bueno, pues si os parece, os cuento también algo ligerito de la zona, del terreno y de la bodega.
Por supuesto.
¿Okay? Y luego pasamos a probar los vinos. Bueno, la zona es una denominación de origen hermana de Rueda, digamos.
The Ribera del Duero is the sister, Ribera del Duero is the brother to Rueda, his sister. They're both DOs within the larger Castilla y León area.
Están muy cerca, como dices, en localización y son muy complementarias porque en Rueda prácticamente no se produce vino tinto y en Ribera de Duero pues prácticamente no se produce vino blanco. Entonces, a muchos sitios sí que llegan o llegamos con ellas hermanadas, van de la mano.
Very complementary DOs because obviously the king and the star of the show in Ribera del Duero is red wine with no white being produced in the region. And then obviously the polar opposite in Rueda, which is a major white wine producing region. And they complement each other very well. That's why we have wineries and vineyards in both regions of Ribera del Duero and Rueda.
En cuanto a las características fundamentales de la zona, varias volvemos a lo mismo de antes. Una es el terruño, el terroir, donde la viña tiene todavía o conseguimos más altitud que en Rueda. Nos movemos entre 800 metros y llegamos hasta 1050 metros de altitud.
Well, we're talking about probably Spain's highest altitude vineyards are located in Ribera del Duero, anywhere between 900 and 1500 meters. Increíble.
Terrenos muy pobres, donde la planta tiene que buscar los nutrientes muy hondo y no le sobran. Lo pasa mal para conseguir criar esa buena uva.
Again, very poor soil conditions in Ribera, thus forcing the vines to really dig deep to find the nutrients needed to grow spectacular fruit, which is what's going on here in Ribera del Duero. I think it's interesting to mention that over a third of all the vines planted in Ribera del Duero are over 45 years of age, and with another 10% being over 80 years of age. I think that's super exciting from a quality standpoint. And also the fact that a lot of Ribera del Duero is still planted to bush vine. So, I say a serious percentage of Ribera these days is still being handpicked. Juan Antonio, ¿cuál es la cantidad de área? ¿Hay mucho pie franco en Ribera del Duero todavía?
Sí, en Ribera de Duero todavía otro de los factores que influyen para la calidad de los vinos de Rueda, aparte de la variedad tempranillo o tinto fino, que es la zona donde más calidad nos aporta, otra de las características es la forma de manejar la agricultura. Es un viñedo mucho más antiguo que en Rueda, con lo cual podemos hablar que a lo mejor hay un 50 o 60% que está todavía en pie franco.
Wow, 60% of the region is still bush vine. That's labor intensive. And that's what Juan Antonio is saying, that the winemaking and the grape growing traditions date back over 2,000 years in this area. And there's a tremendous romance when it comes to the farmers cultivating and handling their grapes. And that's a major difference compared to a lot of the other DOs in Spain today.
Hablamos también de una viticultura menos profesional. Menos profesional y más familiar. Tenemos en cuenta que en Ribera de Duero hay 25.000 hectáreas y está repartida entre 9.000 agricultores.
Wow.
Una media de dos hectáreas y media o 3 por agricultor. Con lo que hace que miman mucho su viña, miman su viñedo, todo se hace de forma manual.
Yeah, so another thing he loves about Ribera Duero is the fact that Ribera Duero is much less corporate and more so very family focused. Generations of families of fathers and sons and daughters and mothers working together and really nurturing and babying their vines, which he's very proud of.
That's a wildly important fact for the Somme community.
Yeah, totally. And you know what, that's the beauty of it. I think it all comes down to that. I think if you take a survey and you ask, Somms and distributors and retail gatekeepers alike, all of us, we fell in love with this because of the families and the origins and, the experiences we had with people and wine and food. And that's the beauty of it. That's the magic that we have to protect as we continue to carve out, the wine industry moving forward. So I think that's extremely important because, you can be big, but as long as you're loyal to your family roots, which is what I love about Felix Solis Avantes, then you're being true to that mission statement, true to your core values. And that's what we're all about. Juan Antonio, you mentioned that there is over 25,000 hectáreas in Ribera del Duero. So over 25,000 hectares of planted to vines in the area. ¿Y cuántos agricultores?
Entre 8 y 9.000 agricultores.
Wow. So 25,000+ hectares of planted vines and between 8,000 and 9,000 farmers. That's a lot. So we're talking about an area where, this is literally the family business. So it looks like growing grapes in Ribera del Duero feeds a lot of mouths. That's incredible. ¿Vale? ¿Qué más podemos decir de Ribera del Duero?
Quizá el hándicap un poco lo tenemos a la hora de la vendimia, donde es complicado o hay que estar muy atento para conseguir el punto óptimo de maduración, porque es un clima muy continental, más continental que en Rueda. El ciclo de la vid es más tardío y la vendimia viene más tarde. La vendimia hay algunos años que se empieza a mediados de octubre, donde ya las condiciones climatológicas a nivel de fríos o incluso de heladas en algunos años juegan más en nuestra contra.
Yeah, so definitely continental climate, more so than Rueda. The handicap, the tremendous danger for Ribera del Duero is the fact that it requires a little bit more of a hang time to reach the proper ripening and maturing, the desired levels for the berries, the fruit. And that goes easily into the mid-October, which presents the major disruptor during harvest in Ribera del Duero, which is frost and hail. So cold weather is the danger for Ribera del Duero due to the fact that it requires a longer time on the vine right before peak desired levels of ripening and matureness for the grapes.
Rueda es la, o sea, Ribera de Duero es la zona de España donde la vendimia se concentra más y se hace más corta. Nosotros, por ejemplo, entre 8 y 12 días recolectamos toda la uva de una campaña.
Y eso es porque hay mucho peligro, que tienen que recogerla rápido.
Eso es porque tenemos que apurar al máximo para que la uva tenga un índice de maduración adecuado para lo que nosotros queremos. Y una vez que esté en su punto, esté madura, la tenemos que coger cuanto antes porque vienen fríos, nieblas, lluvias, heladas y, podemos tener enfermedades, podredumbres, etc.
Sí, sí, sí. So in other words, the perfect storm, Ribera del Duero, it's the DO in Spain that has the fastest harvest out of any other region or corner of Spain. The harvest in Ribera del Duero is done anywhere between 8 and 12 days because they cannot take the risk of combating or facing any frosts, rains, and so forth.
Bueno, a partir de ahí, bueno, una vez llegado el tiempo de vendimia, nosotros en bodega en bodega las entradas de uva es en descargas, en remolques pequeñitos de 2-3 mil kilos, y aún así vamos separando la uva según va entrando por calidades, depende de si vamos a hacer un vino joven, un vino de reserva o un gran reserva.
Yeah, so the harvest in Ribera del Duero is done by smaller amounts, anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 kilos at a time. These smaller trucks or these barrels, these tractors that take in the berries to the winery are much smaller. And then these 2,000 to 3,000 kilos are hand harvested to separate the best fruit for different styles of wine, whether it's going to be Joven, Crianza, Reserva, or Gran Reserva.
Una particularidad que no he dicho antes del viñedo es que prácticamente el 80-85% del viñedo es de secano, coge la humedad que cae del cielo. Lo que hace que las producciones sean unas producciones pequeñitas, la uva pequeñita con mucha concentración y se extrae más calidad. Como dato, la media del rendimiento por hectárea en la denominación de origen Ribera de Duero a lo largo de los años prácticamente no llega a 4.000 kilos por hectárea.
¿Qué es lo que es un secalo? No entendí lo que estaba explicando ahí. Que
Dry farmed.
Oh, ok. Vale, yeah. 45% de Ribera del Duero es dry farm. Juan Antonio, eso es lo que está diciendo. Y por eso mucho poco de kilos por hectárea, ¿correcto? 4.000 kilos.
85%.
Oh, 85% of Ribera del Duero is dry farm. Absolutely.
So super low yields.
Yeah, smaller yields. Max yields per hectare of 4,000 kilos. Vale, perfecto. ¿Aquí le quieren mencionar un poco de dónde estamos nosotros?
Bueno, nosotros estamos en el extremo norte de la Ribera de Duero. La Ribera de Duero abarca, me parece que son 110 kilómetros.
115 de ancho y como 27 de ancho, ¿no?
Exactamente.
Ribera del Duero, we're located in the northern part of Ribera del Duero. The region is about 116 kilometers wide with about probably 27 to 30 kilometers of length. So wide and height. Yep.
Y no podríamos decir que una zona es mejor que otra, toda la Ribera de Duero es buena, luego depende un poco de la altitud, del terreno. Nosotros vamos seleccionando viñedos año tras año, desde que empezamos con la bodega, seleccionando viñedos y agricultores y prácticamente traemos uva de casi todas las zonas de la Ribera.
Yeah, we have vineyards in Omedillo de Rao, which is the birthplace of the Pagos del Rey winemaking traditions, which was established in 2002. The Ribera del Duero winery was our first Northern DO winery outside of Valdepeñas. And the reason why this was the first place where we wanted to break ground when deciding to pivot our strategy to the Northern DOs of Spain was because this was the birthplace of our current CEO's wife's family, and he wanted to pay homage to her, therefore building a beautiful Ribera del Duero winery from her birthplace town. Incredible. And we have vineyards. We have some vineyards in that region right there where the winery is, but we do source a lot of fruit from long-term farmers and contracts that we have across all of Ribera del Duero. So now we know that the queen white varietal in Spain is Verdejo. And, you know, every queen deserves and needs her king. So we know now that Tempranillo is king. So, you know, Tempranillo in Spain is interesting. And I always go back to one of my favorite things. How can one country have so many different synonyms for one varietal? And I always come back to the point that that just shows you how deeply rooted the winemaking traditions and passions is from pocket to pocket within Spain. You know, one grape, 6 different names in Spain, and that's not even counting the names in Portugal across, you know, to the west. So extremely remarkable how well Tempranillo thrives on this this part of the world. Some vineyard shots.
Tell us a little bit in closing, what kind of soils does Tempranillo really like?
Juan Antonio, ¿qué tipo de tierra le gusta a Tempranillo? ¿Qué es la mejor tierra para Tempranillo? Yo sé que tú vas a decir Ribera del Duero, pero en Ribera del Duero tenemos, en Ribera del Duero tenemos ¿qué tipo de tierra? I think it's lime and clay, if I recall correctly.
Bueno, pues en Ribera hay varios tipos de tierra. La tierra generalmente es tierra pobre, hay tierra blanquecina, donde en algunas zonas predomina bastante la caliza, pero luego hay otras tierras más fuertes, más arcillosas, donde también se adapta muy bien la variedad Tempranillo. Yo creo que la variedad Tempranillo ahí alcanza su máximo esplendor, o para mí es el mejor Tempranillo de España está en Ribera de Duero, por la tierra, por el clima y porque la mayoría de las plantaciones conservan el clon que había el clon de la Tempranillo que había hace 100 años, porque son plantas en pie franco que conservan esa tipicidad. En otras zonas se ha replantado el mismo Tempranillo en Rioja que en La Mancha. En Ribera se ha mantenido el clon del Tempranillo tinto fino de Ribera.
Yeah, in his opinion, in his humble opinion, he thinks the best Tempranillos in Spain, in the world, are being grown and produced in Ribera del Duero. And that is because of the fact that, you know, we have the original clone of Tempranillo that's been in that region for over 100 years, and that it really thrives well within that terroir. And you were asking, Lars, what type of soil? It's rocky, stone, and clay, mainly in Ribera del Duero.
If I understood correctly, you said
chalk.
white soils.
Yeah, chalk. Yeah, chalk, clay, stones. So his humble opinion is that Ribera del Duero is definitely not just where the king of Tempranillos are being grown in Spain, but anywhere in the world, because of the fact that the Tempranillo clone there has been there for 100 plus years. Really
Pedro, as we wrap it up, as we come into our hour, could you just explain a little bit about the selection for Crianza and the Reserva? Is that a selection that's done mainly in the vineyard? Is it in the cellar? How is that differentiated?
Juan Antonio, ¿cómo tú escoges la fruta que va a entrar para crianza o reserva? ¿Cómo tú decides qué se va a usar para reserva, crianza y gran reserva? Creo que mencionaste que eso se decide cuando llega la fruta a la bodega, que están recibiendo la fruta a mano, están escogiendo la mejor fruta para diferentes estilos de vino.
Bueno, por un lado están los parámetros analíticos que ya nos indican algunas cosas, concentración, polifenoles,
Yeah, we measure the
color.
concentration, the polyphenols. Obviously, we do I think it's a 23-point test immediately the moment we receive any fruit from any of our farmers. So that grade, we grade them at the gate, And depending on the grade of that grape, of that fruit, we will decide whether to go to Joven, Crianza, Reserva, or Gran Reserva. And
Por
I would
otro,
bet, dime Juan Antonio.
sí, por otro lado está, digamos, la historia de esa uva, de qué finca vienen, qué edad tiene la parcela, qué
course.
producción tienen, y esas analíticas o esas catas que hemos hecho previamente cuando visitamos el campo previamente a Vendimia.
Of course, I
Y
think that's also
por último, perdona Pedro, y por último, digamos, pues la inspección visual que se hace también con la uva ya en bodega, que también es importante. Podemos tener datos, pero si visualmente no nos gusta esa uva, pues no irá a los vinos de mejor calidad.
Vale, total. I think Lars got exactly what he was looking for, if I know Lars well. He says that obviously it's extremely important that we not forget that each grape comes with a story. You know, each load comes with a story because there's a family behind it. There's a vineyard site. There's an average age within that vineyard site that the quality is going to be much better. So they take all of that into consideration. Obviously, he spends a lot of time visiting our farmers and our partners to make sure that, you know, the growing season and that the maintenance of the vineyards are up to our standards. And then ultimately at the end, you know, the human aspect, the minimal human aspect during the winemaking process. If something doesn't look good, then it's not good. If something looks great, then it's great.
And that's what I love about the wine world, is that we have all these great equipment for analysis and everything else, but it comes down to the winemaker's eye and palate.
Exactly. And that's what he said. He's like, look, you know, we can't just count on the 23 parameters that we take at the gate. You know, we have to have our common sense and use our feel, you know, that human touch, that, you know, I always say it's 90%, you know, earth and climate and terroir and fruit, and then 10%, you know, human interaction with this process just combines everything into the bottle. Okay, so I think we've got the Joven in the glass now.
Yeah, we're at our hour mark, so we kind of have to wrap it up. But can you give us a brief? I got to tell you, these wines are beautiful. Everything that you had up on that slide about Tempranillo is just showing itself in the glass. A lot of beautiful blackberry and bramble in the Joven.
Yeah.
You know, the Crianza starts to show a little bit more structure. You get to the Reserva, and I get a level of smokiness that is absolutely gorgeous. You know, it's going on 1 o'clock here in New York, and I'm ready for lunch, and I want to throw something on the grill with these wines.
It's crazy. It's crazy how we try to be within an hour, but we get carried away. You know, we get excited and we lag a little bit. So we'll run through it. Why am I excited about Ribera Duero, Tempranillo, and why is it part of our primary strategy to continue to advocate and talk about Ribera Duero and grow Ribera Duero's position on the shelves here and on the wine menus and on by the glass offerings? Look, I think Ribera Duero is to Spain like Napa is to California. I think Juan Antonio said it. You know, it creates bold, dense, powerful reds. I think the U.S. consumers like these powerful, dense reds. But there's also a tremendous amount of elegance that comes along with them, and approachability. So the Joven is extremely delicious: bramble, dark fruit, blackberry, blueberry, great aromatics of chocolate, leather, just a beautiful wine that really jumps out of the glass. The Crianza, like you say, you get a little bit more of the red fruit, a little bit more vanilla comes across as well.
Forest floor too.
On the Crianza or the Reserve or the Joven?
On the Crianza.
100%. And we saw the figures. Joven and Crianzas are growing Reservas and Grand Reservas. And I think stylistically, you know, consumers globally are looking for these vibrant, great, luscious reds that got structure, that got good tannic structure, that can pair well with food and without food.
Amen to that.
That's a wrap. Oh, I thought you said no, we still got a couple minutes.
No, I said amen to that.
I'm going to run through pricing real quick. I think it's important for our viewers to know. The Joven is it's going to be anywhere between $9.50 and $10 wholesale. So we're talking about, you know, 13 to 14 retail. The Crianza is 11.25 to 11.75, depending on the market. The Reserva is coming out at 13 to 14, depending on the market as well. So under 20 retail for the Reserva. And like you said, Lars, at this level, the Reserva, you get that smokiness. I almost call it like that bacon fat comes through, that smokiness, right? Really comes through at the end. It's an incredibly well integrated red. It's just delicious. The Grand Reserva is peaking, in my opinion. This is a 2000.
This is 2014. That's the vintage that's currently on the market.
This is our current vintage. This is
What a treat.
2014. I think it's peaking right now. This wine, you can, from the moment you pop the cork, it's ready to go, and it gets better in the glass. It is lovely. It is extremely balanced. The perfume that comes out of this wine is extremely hypnotizing. I can just smell it for hours. It's beautiful. It's delicious.
I just want to clarify, when you say peaking, I would just fine tune that a little bit and say it's hitting the top of the bell curve, and that top curve is going to be long, because I think this wine has got great structure.
You know
When
what?
you say,
Good point.
people might misunderstand when you say peaking, think it's past its prime. It's not. It's hitting its prime,
Yeah.
and it's going to be at its prime for quite a while. This is a beautiful, well-rounded wine.
Thank you for that. And the wholesale price for the Grand Reserva is $24. So
Great
again,
values.
great value, winery direct supply chain. So from vineyard to table, it's Felix Solis' intention to grow the Spanish category in the US market. We appreciate everybody that stuck around to learn about Blume, our Rueda wines, Condado de Oriza, our wines from Ribera del Duero, and a little bit about the Felix Solis story and our mission to offer the best wines at the best price globally, and to mainly grow the Spanish category here in the US market. The US market is a thriving wine market. The Spanish category is way behind. I think we have a lot of room for growth. I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in Spain, and Felix Solis wants to be at the forefront of that. And we're committed to bringing the best Spanish wines at the best prices to the US market. So thank you all for joining us today. Lars, thank you so much.
Pedro, Juan Antonio, thank you guys very much on behalf of the Somm Journal. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been recorded. It will be on the sommjournal.com website, and it will also be on our Facebook platform. We were on Facebook Live. And those of you who are in the trade, if you don't already have a subscription to the Somm Journal, it's complimentary to the trade. Drop me a line, lars@sommjournal.com. Pretty simple, LARS@sommjournal.com. We'd love to set you up, and we love educating the Somm community. And Pedro, go ahead. What do you want to say?
Oh, no, I thought we had a question. I just wanted to try to get it before we go.
No, there was one question, and you answered it right in time. The question was on
perfect.
the pricing of the Grand Reserva, which you said was
Awesome.
24 retail.
Awesome. Perfect. I just wanted to make sure we got everything before we go. Everyone, cheers. Happy holidays. Thank you so much. Juan Antonio, muchas gracias.
Hey, I have one word for everybody. If you get a hold of these wines, one word to think about: Thanksgiving.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Crianza with the Thanksgiving feast, be a beautiful thing.
With a
Thank you very much.
Turkey with
Muchas
cranberry
gracias.
sauce, huh?
Yeah.
Ok, muchas gracias.
Ciao, ciao. Thank
Gracias,
you,
Juan
everyone. Bye,
Antonio.
Lars. Thank you.
Buenas tardes.
Ciao.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Great afternoon.
Thanks, Lars. Take care, buddy. Awesome, awesome, awesome turnout. Fun time. We ran a little later than usual.